Wow, I tell you, it is amazing how we, how we look at things, because we are the same people who are saying sport is a business, sport is a career, and the athlete should approach it as such. But
Mhm.
now that they are doing it, we're having a problem.
Issues with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're having
Yeah.
issues. We're calling it sellout. We're calling it all kind of things. But the thing is that I have said to close friends that the conversation that we should be having right now is not that athletes have switched. The conversation that we should be having is, how do we curb this? What kind of system are we going to put in place as it relates to athletes' welfare, training facility, training programs, incentives? What are we going to put in place now to give our athletes an opportunity to choose us first?
Well, I had a conversation with Mr. Greens last night, but she was saying that, well, that's our last night at the Shady and the price. And she said, so you don't think we're doing anything? I said, no, I never said that. What I said is that we are not doing enough, right?
Right.
Because the athletes insurance scheme, I think, is a brilliant scheme. Huh? That's something that the athletes have. But if you're not injured or you're not in need of medical services, that insurance scheme is not really beneficial to you. I said to her last night, and I said again today, what needs to happen is that needs to be a collaboration between the JOA, the J3As, the private sector, and government. And
Right.
they find a common ground and create a structure around helping the athletes, finding ways to create revenue on a sustainable basis. That revenue is then distributed to athletes as needed. Because when you represent the country, you are a brand ambassador. You should be paid for that because there's value for that. And I don't care what people want to say about whatever it is. You put on the national colors to represent Jamaica. You are a brand ambassador, and you should. There is value to that. It's the reason why NIL contracts have become the norm in the NCAA now, because those images are why college athletes, colleges earn, and the NCAA earns money using those athletes' images to earn money. So as a consequence, when the athlete puts on a Jamaican color and gets out there, they are representing the country, and they should be paid some kind of NIL, name, image, and likeness, because that's what people watch for, and they represent the country for that. So what needs to happen is that they need to create a structure, I think, a tiered structure where if you're at a certain level, you get paid X. If you get a higher level, you get X plus one, and at the highest level, you get X plus two. And that way, because look, you will never be able to pay every athlete, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
But once you graduate to the level of national representative, then you move into that tier one, tier two, tier three, depending on what you're able to accomplish in
Yeah.
those tiers at international competitions. I think it's very possible. I think I don't think it's unreasonable for the government of Jamaica to put aside $1 million US every year towards some kind of a unit trust or a stable instrument that turns over a long period of time. You do that for every year for the next 20 years, with a constant turning over of interest that's at 3 to 5%. You have a fund of say 45, $50 million US. And then from that, you can, if an athlete is at a national representation level and is requiring of assistance, you can draw down $100,000 a year for that athlete or higher, depending on what is required. And I remember that everybody's going to retire at the same time. So, from a retirement standpoint, once that fund continues to turn over, eventually it becomes hundreds of millions of dollars. You can pay an athlete maybe $30,000 a year as a retirement, as a pension, um, and then afford other structural things like putting in place a proper rehabilitation center that they don't have to pay for, but you can pay the physios out of that fund, like a monthly salary or something like that. But then the artists can go there and get their massage therapy and stuff like that, and acupuncture, whatever it is, free of cost or at a reduced rate. And of course, you can probably open up the facilities to the public, and then that those funds are to generate operational costs as well. So there are different things that you can do. I mean, all you have to do is sit down and think about it. I mean, when you look at it, look, people always argue that government can't afford to do this or government can't afford to do that. But government can always afford to do things that they want to do and find the money when they want to do when they want to do it.
Yeah.
So the athletes here are in a situation where they are in need of your support. They are in need of your help. Especially those who don't have true contracts. The ones who have true contracts, that's fine. The contract can take care of them. Huh? And but especially for those who don't have contracts, you can create a fund from which you can support them with those contracts. Right? It doesn't have to be at the outset. It don't have to be $100,000, but it can be $20,000. You know, and them can probably find them their own for the rest of the money what them need, a little hustle here or there or whatever it is. But at least they're getting that money that will help to have a base for them to work on. So even if things don't work out for them in terms of maybe getting a temporary, some kind of temporary job or something, they know that they have a money in them say, okay, on the bank, and say, okay, fine, we can pay my physiotherapist this week, we can pay my coach this week, we can buy some groceries to get me the protein I need to be able to build my body up to do what I need to do. But when you have to be scrounging around and depending on people and pushing your pride in your back pocket to beg people for help, that doesn't help you. It doesn't help your self-esteem. It doesn't help your confidence, and it
Yeah.
literally it degrades your ability to perform well. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you go out there and you have a thing there, and you're under pressure knowing that, well, I have to make a final. Because I don't make a final, now
You
get
don't
you
get the
hungry for the next.
contract. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you take away that pressure initially and allow the athletes to perform at their best by taking away some of that pressure. So there are many things that can be done, but for me, ideally, it has to be a partnership with the JOA, the J3As, the government, and of course the private sector. Because a lot of these private sector companies, they instead of put out ads whenever the athlete wins something. Congratulations to John Brown for whatever. Instead of putting out that ad, bring the artist in as an ambassador and pay them a salary to be an ambassador. Especially though a lot of our artists are very engaging globally. So they're an ambassador. So they at least have that, and then a little bit of funding from the structure that I just spoke to a while ago.
Yes.
And then they'll be less inclined to want to leave because at least they're seeing an effort from the stakeholders here that they have their interests at heart. Because sometimes it's not just the money. It's
There you
about
go.
feeling like you are valued.
Yes.
And if you don't feel like you're valued, you're going to leave. I don't care how good you think things are for the athletes. Some of these athletes are literally living hand to mouth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not like back in the 1980s where the Golden League, where athletes used to make a lot of money in the Golden League. The Diamond League has changed that setup altogether where only the elite athletes at the top make all the money. The athletes who are finishing down in the ranks, not making no money. They might fly them in and give them a hotel for 2 nights, and you get a couple of meals, and then you go back home to starvation. So
With
you have to create a structure that the athletes will be able to then have a sustainable source of support that allows them to train without the unnecessary headaches, train without the pressure, and train without the worry. So make their life a little bit more comfortable.